Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar on the competition law. While everyone starts logging in and joining us, maybe grabbing a coffee, I'll take 3 minutes of your time to tell you about the International Business Chamber of Cambodia. IBC has over 120 corporate members covering various industries and nationalities, keeping the business community updated on developments and opportunities available. IBC is a major business association that was established in 1993, which also makes it one of the oldest business associations in Cambodia. You can see on your screen now the 9 IBC board members making up our executive committee, covering a large range of companies, nationalities and industries. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Catherine McLean and I'm the Executive Director for the International Business Chamber of Cambodia. IBC is also the Secretariat for Working Group D on Law, Tax and Governance, working with the Ministry of Economy and Finance, with His Excellency Deputy Prime Minister Dr. Ampol Monirot. Working Group D is part of the Government Private Sector Forum, which now has 13 different working groups under its umbrella. Working Group D was instrumental to providing feedback to the government from the private sector in relation to the investment law, which was promulgated in October 2021. And also working with the government to reduce the quarantine requirements at the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. We have many subcommittees and projects within IBC focusing on health, supply chain, road safety, directors and governance and education. Today, we are very lucky to have with us Dr. Virik Prum, Professor and Advisor at CamEd Business School. Dr. Virik is a respected figure in the legal community and brings with him over 15 years of combined international academic and work experience in the fields of law, policy and international development. Some of his past leadership work being Senior Political Advisor at the British Embassy, a Public Affairs Specialist at the United States Embassy and a Dean at the Faculty of Law. Dr. Virik has published articles on decentralisation, public administration and climate change. He's also authored many opinion pieces in the Phnom Penh Post and the Khmer Times around constitution law, administrative law, international economic law and competition law. To begin today's webinar, I'll hand you over to Dr. Virik Prum. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Catherine, for a very kind introduction. So I will just go ahead and share screen, right? Okay, so let's just go ahead. I hope it all works. So does it work perfectly, Catherine? Can you confirm yes or no?
Perfect.
Okay, so again, a very good morning to all of you. And it's not every day that you wake up in the morning and talk about competition law. So I hope today your time with me will be worthwhile. Now, to begin with, all of you know that we have this new competition law in Cambodia from last year. Previously, we used to have another law on unfair practices, but that law was not very comprehensive. It only focused on certain part of it, but now with this new law, it's more comprehensive. So to begin with, I would just like to throw at you the most basic economic assumptions. Please bear in mind that I am not a specialist in economic theories, but basically in competition law, we need to know a little bit about economics behind it. First of all, markets, competition, and marginal cost, right? So when we talk about markets within the parameters of competition law, you're looking at it being either by product or by location. So these two components will be talked about throughout in the future when we start having cases. You will hear a lot of lawyers and judges talk about what is market in the context of competition law. And then competition itself, our Cambodian law also defines it as, you know, when you try to gain a market share. Now, basically, of course, you try to gain as big as possible market share. In other words, you're trying to somehow obtain market power, all right? So if you don't try to gain market share, if you don't try to gain market power, then probably there's not much case against you. And last but not least, the competitive price, right? All of us go around shopping, we say we want to buy it, we want to buy something at its best price, being maybe the least expensive one, right? So that's what we call competitive price. So anything above that would be could be subject to challenges. Now that we have covered the three basic economic assumptions, next one, let me go further. Okay, so the competition law, as we speak of it today, sometimes people don't realize that what would be the objective of competition law. Of course, all of us, when we come into business, we are not doing business to lose money, right? Everyone comes into business to make money. So of course, a lot of the things will be allowed, but certain things would have to be checked because it's not always very cool to just keep making money while you go about breaking other stuff. So therefore, the objective of competition law in a nutshell, we could talk about two very important objectives. One being the consumer welfare. And the debate on consumer welfare is very dominant, even in the United States. So when you talk about competition law, basically people just understand it as something that allows you to buy good things of high quality, but at low price, right? So that therefore, in the end, you're talking about how do we serve our public, right? How do we serve our people? So consumer welfare protection is one good objective of the law. However, if we only focus on that part of the story, then somehow we lose our oversight. Because competition law is not just simply to ensure that things could be bought at a lowest price possible, but you also have to ensure that there are competitors out there. Because of course you can have just one big company selling everything at low price, then should you be happy? Some people might be happy, but then in the long run, you feel like, something's what's going on? Because if you only have one supplier, although that supplier is kind to you selling stuff at low price, but in the long run, that supplier will start acting weird, right? Because then if there's only one supplier in the market, then in the long run, that supplier will keep raising up the cost, raising up the price up and up and up, and you don't have any say into it because there's only one supply. So that's why we have to say that consumer welfare protection is important, but that is not the only thing we have to care about. So we have to care about the protection of the competitive process itself, ensuring that we always have competition. So which is why Cambodian law and our new law 2021 sort of understands this importance, and we built into the law both objectives. So we don't have to spend time talking about which one. Our Cambodian law kindly introduced two concepts at the same time. So that's why you see the term high quality, low price, many choices, etc. So that go toward the realization of the objective number one, being consumer welfare. And then you also have some other qualities, other attributes that go into the protection of the competitive process itself. And that you could see, business dealings on honesty, quality, increase of economic efficiency, encouraging the birth of new business, and so on. So therefore, these are legal terms now, right? So because these are being used in our law, so our law cleverly introduced the two concepts at the same time, the two objectives at the same time. Other people talk about some other objectives as well, but these two being the main ones. Okay, so I'll just go very quick because we don't have so much time. Now, again, Catherine already introduced it a little bit in her advertisement slide. You joined today because you would like to know what is market share, and more importantly, how do you discern the existence of market share. So please do not forget that if you don't have market power, people will just leave you alone, right? Basically. So therefore, you only start to be worried about your actions if your business actually controls a certain part of the market. So in order to find market power, there are many ways to do it. The easiest one, which everyone knows, judges love it, lawyers love it, market share. Number, figures, right? So if you could prove that this particular company, this particular factory, this particular manufacturer controls X% of production, etc., So that is an indication of whether or not that entity does have market share. So the easiest way to do it is look at the market share. Look at the market share being an existence of market power. So figures are easiest to understand for everyone, for you, for me, for most of us. Figures speak loudly, right? But then, what if you don't have the exact number? What if you don't know the level of market share enjoyed by a business entity? Then you could also look at other ways, which is about, for example, barriers to market interest. So sometimes you want to invest in certain things. You have realized that, okay, there is market in this area. There are some competitors out there, but things still look pretty positive. So you want to come into that market. But then you quickly realize that, oh, it's going to cost so much. In fact, the cost will be prohibitive because of the current conditions that are already existing. So therefore, if you could find the existence of barrier to market, judges in the US, for example, I keep talking about the US because our law is so new, so we don't have real cases as yet. But in the US, they look at if they could find barrier to the market entrance, then judge will look at you with a lot of questions, right? And the barrier to market is created in many ways. It's not just only about cost and production and all of that, but sometimes even government regulations themselves could be a barrier to market. So therefore, the role of the judge is to really balance between what is needed, what is sufficient, or what is not unnecessary. Okay, so if you can prove that certain examples that create barrier to market, then you might have a case against that business entity. Then, aside from market share or barriers to market entrance, in the past experience elsewhere, they also have looked at other like less known areas, even technology, for example. There have been cases elsewhere where a company employed, that company is not very big as today, as yet, but that company has come up with a great technology that has the potential to really control the backend, if not all, but most of it. So if a company employs certain tools such as very powerful technology like that, a judge in the US could also have a lot of questions because although the company is not controlling at the moment, although the company is not a monopoly at the moment, but that company has a lot of potential to become one very soon unless we do something. Okay, so therefore, sometimes technology could also open up to potential cases in competition. Also, judges sometimes I think judges, a lot of them study economics. So of course, I hope that they understand the figures, forecasts, and predictions. So there have been cases where people try to not talk about the current terms, but people, when they file against a company, they could use as part of the evidence. They could use financial projections. They could tell the judge to say, "Judge, take a look. If we go with this increasing trend, right? So the company market share is going up and up and up and up. Right now, at the moment, it doesn't control the market as yet. It's not a monopoly yet. But unless you do something now, it might be too late. So therefore, sometimes judges even give certain weight to predictions. So if someone comes up with a very, very convincing argument telling the judge exactly that unless we do something now, these predictions are likely to be correct. These predictions are really reliable. The forecast says this company will become a monopoly in 2 years, for example. Then the judge could also not and maybe agree with that argument. So if that be the case, then yes, not just market share that you have figured, not just barriers that you have proven, but even future, right? Even the future could be brought into discussion because predictions are about the future. Prediction is not today. Prediction is about next term, next quarter, next year. And last but not least, there have been cases where lawyers argued that, well, although we don't have to look at market share, market entrance barrier, or forecast, but the very fact, the simplest fact that the product are being sold at higher, much higher price, sharp increase in price, and yet the company still retain the sale volume. So what does it tell you? Even if the price has sharply gone up, and yet you still retain the sale volumes, that tells everyone of us that this company actually must have market power, right? If the company doesn't have market power, how could it retain sale volumes even after having increased the price so sharply, right? So sometimes the argument is less obvious, you don't have really figure, but then you could prove that it is what it is in the market. So some judges could also take a look at that as well. So in a nutshell, if we follow the experience in the US, you could look at market share number, easy. You could look at barriers to market entry, and you could look at predictions, technology, and all of that. And things keep growing. So I don't know, in the future, maybe they come up with other ways of looking at how to identify market power. But as today, these are the tools that are being used in the US. And so basically now, what the law prohibits. Okay, so in Cambodian law, 2020, the law basically follows the international trend. So I guess these four areas are not typically in Cambodia. It's almost everywhere. So a lot of competition laws actually include these. US, British, most European laws also include these, and a lot of competition laws in ASEAN countries. Please notice that Cambodia is the last country of all the ASEAN members to have adopted this law. So the previous 9 countries have adopted it. We are the last one to join the club. So we now have adopted this law. So basically, they talk about horizontal agreements, vertical agreements, mergers, and of course, as I said earlier, market position, a dominant market position. So when they talk about horizontal agreements, the agreements that could bring trouble, the agreements that could have anti-competitive effect, you're looking at relationship, you're looking at agreements entered into by corporations that operate at the same level of distribution or production. Okay, so if you look at, for example, KFC with Texas chicken, or KFC with Burger King, etc. So those fast food restaurant, chain fast food restaurant, they obviously operate almost at the same level, right? So therefore, if KFC and Burger King somehow come into agreement to fix price, for example, that would be illegal, because that is what we call horizontal agreement entered into between people operating at the same level. Otherwise, anything that doesn't fall under horizontal arrangement, you could easily say vertical arrangement. So that you look at relationships, agreements between corporations that operate at different levels, such as agreement between manufacturer and retailer, retailer and other wholesaler, etc., etc. So those people that operate at different level within the supply chain, those kind of agreements that exist could be subject to what we call vertical agreements. And later I'll give you an example. As for mergers, you're talking about mergers when two previously competitors, right? When those two competitors sort of merge together into becoming just one, then you have concerns about these two companies becoming a strong monopoly. All right. So therefore, we have to check whether we should allow or stop this kind of practice. So which is why basically in reality, when two big companies wish to merge, they can't just go and then do it. They have to submit an application. Okay, they submit an application, and the institution in charge of that, the law enforcement agency in charge of that, will take a look at their proposal. And if they feel like, oh, if we allow you to do so, you guys will obviously become a monopoly, then they will not allow. That merger thing will never happen. Or sometimes, but because things happen so fast, sometimes they don't submit the application, then how do we know? So a lot of the time, law enforcement in the US have to do the work after the fact, right? So companies already merge, and then somebody files a claim. Now then they take a look, and then they will ask a lot of questions. But ideally, before merger, they should submit application to check whether it is allowed. Okay. In Cambodia, because our law is still new, and you would notice that the law talks about the creation of National Commission on Competition. Okay, so therefore, we already have a sub-decree signed by Prime Minister for that purpose. But I think they're still looking at recruiting people, because the commission is chaired by the Minister of Commerce and many other relevant high-ranking people from the government. But that commission must also have certain independent members. And I guess as of today, as I heard, they still have one vacant position or two vacant positions, I'm not sure, to be filled for independent members. Okay, so as soon as that commission becomes operational, then that commission will have to draft and adopt many policies, many rules, many guidelines to really implement the law. So as things stand today, we have the law, but without those guidelines and rules, then you don't actually see the flesh of the law, right? So now you see the bones, but you don't see yet the flesh. Now, dominant market position, yes, and that could be easily done by my previous slide on market power. So this, we come to the last slide. Okay, so I promise you, I'm not going to be here forever. I don't want you to fall asleep because first thing in the morning you listen to competition law. All right, so here, this slide, I hope to provide you with some examples that we have. The actual business practices that could cause anti-competitive effect. All right, so basically, regardless of what you're talking about, it could be horizontal arrangement, vertical arrangement, or whatever agreement. Basically, things could be regrouped under three big categories, right? It could be collusion, it could be exclusion, or it could be mergers, right? So collusion happens usually among horizontal people, right? As I said previously, when two big companies secretly have an agreement to fix price, the easiest example is Capital's price fixing. That is obviously illegal. Okay, so that we call illegal per se. Illegal per se, that means the thing that we automatically prohibit, okay, such as price fixing, bid rigging, for example, and market division. Market division is another example of collusion. Imagine two or three players in a particular market. They say, you sell in this area, don't come to that area I control it, and the other area, one our friend control it. So if they have this kind of internal agreement to divide the market, then that is illegal. So that is strictly prohibited, and our law also exactly talk about it. So our law, Cambodian law, exactly give a whole list of what are the things that are prohibited under horizontal agreements, what are the things that are prohibited under vertical agreements. Okay, so price fixing is bad everywhere. We prohibit price fixing because it's two people being very strong and yet they collude, and what is the effect of their collusion? Of course, the smaller players will go out of business because they can't keep up selling at much higher price, because these guys, they collude with their price, so their price will be the lowest one. Actually, sometimes it even go lower than the marginal cost. In the previous example, there used to be cases like this, and that is easily found to be illegal. Okay, so it either collusive practices or exclusionary. So now, when you try to exclude your competitor through tying arrangements, very popular, or predatory pricing. Okay, let me give you one example of predatory pricing. When you talk about predatory pricing, you're talking about two stages. Stage number one, you try to lower, right? So you start selling your products at a much lower price. And once your price gets so low, of course, the others, smaller people for whom production costs, everything is much higher than you, they will go out of business. And when those people go out of business, now you come back and increase your price, right? So now you see two stages. Stage one, lower the price to kill the others. And then stage two, now that you're alone, you raise your price. So that is dominant, right? So you cannot exclude your competitors this way. Tying arrangements is very popular everywhere. Now, when was the last time you bought a cell phone that comes with headsets, for example? When was the last time you went shopping at a mall, at a supermarket? You bought a frying pan, and then the frying pan is sold as a bundle, is sold as a package with I don't know, a bag of sugar. That would be tying arrangements, and that is a potential competition law lawsuit area. Why? Because basically, who is able to do this kind of tying arrangements? Meaning, they are selling you not one, but two products. So sometimes, most of the time, I guess, we only need one product. But you cannot buy just it. You have to buy as a bundle. You have to buy as a group, as a package. So therefore, you are forced to also spend on the second item, which you don't need. Okay, so therefore, whenever there is a forced sale like that, that is potentially a competition law issue. And usually the people that could do that are not small people. Usually they are quite big players. Okay, example, if you buy a phone, you really love that phone. So you want to buy the phone, but the phone is sold together with headsets, although you don't want the headset, but it's sold together, for example, right? It's all together, then you have to pay for both. Of course, the seller will say, no, this is package. They don't tell you that the two prices are included. But in reality, of course, they are always included, no matter what. So you end up buying both the phone and the headset, or both the phone and the charger. I don't know. It really depends. So when you look at the time arrangement, you look at two markets. You look at the cell phone market, and you look at the earphones market. These are two different products, right? You can easily have a phone without ever using your earphone, correct? Although it's maybe more convenient, but I was trying to say that these two products are very distinct products. They should have been sold separately. In fact, they could be sold separately without forcing you to buy both. But usually the tie arrangement happens because the cell phone owner, the cell phone company is a good one, is a strong one. Not always good, but a strong one, a dominant player. So when that person, that company is a dominant player in the market of the phone, of course, by tying another product to it, that player also eventually becomes controller in the second market as well, right? So therefore, if you are using your dominant market position in the phone business, and by using that dominance, you also are able to sell other smaller products. And customers have no choice because they want the phone so much, so they have to pay for the package. That way, you are essentially killing those potential competitors in the second market. And that's why it's wrong. That's why it's wrong. Okay. So basically, tying arrangements happens when someone is controlling in a particular market, and by packaging technology, by selling it and together with another less necessary product, that person also eventually become market dominant in the second market. So therefore, which is why we don't want that to happen. And again, all of these that I'm talking about, price fixing, bid thinking, market vision, all of that, our law made some reference to it, but it will become clear and clearer when the commission, when the competition commission becomes operational. That commission will have to draft and adopt a lot of policies, and things will be clearer then. And obviously, as in anything, a law can only be useful when you really start bringing cases, right? So unless you bring cases, the law will just sit there and not knowing how we actually implement it. Last but not least, so aside from collusive practices, exclusionary practices, mergers is another big concern. Now, I'm sure all of you in the business, your companies might have talked about merging with another one, etc., etc. But now that we have this law, so you probably need to be more mindful of your business strategy. If you're talking about merging potentially with another partner, which may be also a good big player, please be mindful, because the law will take a look at this kind of business practice. Okay, so if you're small companies without any real market power, maybe people don't have to be too worried. But if you are quite a big player, please, before you merge, think again, because basically, as I said earlier, when the commission becomes operational, I am certain that the commission will establish rules to govern the process of approving mergers. So they will come with a lot of indicators so that you have to follow. They will come with a format application. So before your merger goes ahead, you have to maybe submit your proposal to the commission, and the commission takes a look. The commission provide ideas, and if the commission approves, you could merge. If the commission doesn't, you cannot. Of course, the decision of the commission is subject to challenge, right? Because you are business, you try to do your strategy, you want to merge, and yet commission says no, that would make you too much a monopoly. What remedy do you have? You can go to court. So in the future, if your merger proposition, if your merger application is turned down by the commission, it's not the end of the world. You can still go to court and challenge that disapproval. Okay, so which is why if in the US they also look at what happened before the merger and what happened after the merger, and that happens because, as I said, sometimes, in fact, very often, people don't care going to the FTC. In the US, that's what we call FTC, Federal Trade Commission. Federal Trade Commission is very powerful in this area. Okay, so of course, some people don't care about FTC. They went ahead merging and all of that, and then soon FTC start receiving a lot of complaints against that particular player. Then that's where FTC comes in, file a claim to the court to break that merger, And one evidence would be for presenting to the judge would be, see, Mr. Judge, this is the price before the merger, and this is the price after the merger. So you see, hopefully a sharp increase in price, for example, if there is a increase in price right after the merger or soon enough after the merger, then of course that is an indication that the merger actually contributes to this new company becoming a monopoly. And in that case, the judge will just say, okay, FTC, you have a case. This merger will have to be broken up. Now, before I leave you, I would like to also share one more a little bit of history. In the US, this competition law started back a long time ago, right? 1890, a century ago. And that had to do with Mr. John Rockefeller. If you know him, John Rockefeller was at one point the richest man on earth. His company, the state of the oil, right? So oil is a lot of money always, because John Rockefeller was too smart at times, and being smart is one thing, but he was too manipulative, right? So his company, the oil, went around and killing the others. I mean, not literally, but he would go and say, you either sell your business to me or I'll kill your business, right? So that's what John Rockefeller did. And that's how he became huge up to one point where people said enough is enough, because at that time companies were created under what we call trust. So therefore, the US had to come with something against the trust practice. That's why their law is called antitrust, right? So they don't use the word competition law, but they use antitrust because of that history. And again, we might have John Rockefeller as well too. And so therefore, just a note, whatever you do as a business, first, be mindful of your market share. I know that I sound strange because what you're talking about, I'm a business person. I want to control market share. Okay, that's not wrong to be rich, but the second objective of the law, okay, it's not just about consumer welfare. It's not good enough just to sell stuff at low price. It's also important that your actions do not contribute to you becoming a monopoly, because the second objective of the law is the protection of the competitive process itself, and that could be interpreted in so many ways. So therefore, I'm sure the second objective gives a lot of power to interpretation. So judges, I'm sure from now on, you also have to learn about the new competition law. And if they learn experience from elsewhere, and because Cambodian law is so much like American law, the drafting process of our competition law went through many stages, and a lot of people were happy. Okay, there were experts from Europe, from the US, from Australia, from Germany. In the end, we have a law that is basically very, very Western in its setting. So that's what we have, and I hope I have not made you fall asleep. Thank you. I will end my.
So to everyone that's been listening, unfortunately, it's all we have time for today. Thank you, everyone, for participating in today's event. I'm sure you're leaving today's webinar with a greater understanding of the new competition law. You've taken a very detailed law and concepts, making them very easy to understand, not an easy task. So thank you to Dr. Vivek Prum for sharing your knowledge and expertise with us today.
Have a nice day, everyone. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So just to let you know a few more events that IBC are hosting that are coming up. So tomorrow night, we have an event at the Raffles Hotel on the IBC supply chain. We're doing that with the Cambodian Logistics Association. If anyone is interested, please email us at events@ibccambodia.com. We are also hosting a special event with Her Excellency Tina Redshaw, the British Ambassador to Cambodia, on Tuesday, May the 10th at the Hyatt Regency Hotel. Her Excellency will be talking about UK-Cambodia business ties with some reflection on her time spent in Cambodia. This is your chance to hear from Her Excellency and enjoy a full-course dinner with wine during the event. Seats are limited for this event, so if you are interested, again, please do let us know and book in advance. I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank our sponsors, CBC, the leading provider of financial information, analytical solutions and credit reporting services in the Kingdom of Cambodia. Invictus International School, they believe in personalised learning approach, delivering rigorous curriculum to encourage lifelong learning. And ADA, Analytics Data Advertising, a group of digital-first individuals with a growth mindset, achieving big outcomes for customers. Thank you everyone for attending today and enjoy the rest of your day. Akun Sharan, bye-bye.
Thank you.